it's over.
It just about is, yeah. It's a bit fatalistic. It's over.
No, but fantastically so. Yes. So yes, welcome to the final episode of Can't Be There, Be Here, with me, Caron Lyon, and the wonderful Elise Harris.
Yeah.
Without whom the digital Free Fringe, for me, would not have been able to happen. So just, what's the journey been from there to here? Take me on a journey, Elise.
It's been a long time getting from there to here as enterprise. It's been good because I wasn't actually going to go physically to Edinburgh, and I haven't been there since 2019. But I just suddenly went, I may as well, Googled what train prices were. I was like, it was interesting because having the balance between doing the digital shows and being live on the ground, so that I had options for actually interviewing people that were there as well as people that weren't there. And, a lot of them, they just, if you're just rolling out of bed, then you could be anywhere. So, but it was good to meet actual people and see what they were doing and see their shows, which I couldn't have done if I'd have stayed at home. But if they'd have been on the Digital Fringe as well, we could have had all sorts of extra bonus content from them. So maybe next year I'm going to push the bonus content more for them.
Yeah. I think, we've got a lot of, I took some photos inside the venue and tried to document as much as we can and do some little videos because, letting people know that the Digital Fringe is a thing. So the last time you were up at the Fringe was 2019.
It was, yeah.
So what happened between 2019 and 2023 for PBH?
Oh, I was like, what happened? Why didn't you? You're missing it. Sorry, it's
that thing happened.
Yeah, we were actually the only people to have done live shows during the 2020 Fringe because we got some live cameras, streaming cameras in the Voodoo Rooms, which is in Newtown, and there were a few things there, like people that one at a time. You couldn't get an audience, but you could get people doing their show and streaming it. So that's what we had. We had the Digital Fringe, but we had actually live in Edinburgh things as well. So we carried on. And then we had just planned to just have the streamed Digital Fringe for 2021. But at the last minute, they said, we're going to have actual shows, which was a little bit of a rug pulled out from under me because all the focus had been just on the digital. And then it was like, that's a sort of afterthought. So it didn't really work that year. I think 2022, it kicked back in. I got to grips with it again and just went, just sort it, just do it. And we worked on it, but it wasn't until quite the last minute that it actually got properly programmed because of technical difficulties. But this year, I think it went splendidly well. And thanks to everyone taking part, including you, you provided the digital venue, the virtual venue that we would.
It was a concept, wasn't it, of where I know when I first started to think I can put some digital things, I hadn't even considered submitting my own regular podcast as a show, and I saw that you had put your podcast and your pilot episode on. I thought that's a really good idea of a way of showcasing some work that you may have done in the year that might get some views. So I had never even considered showcasing my own podcast. So that was a first for me. And then doing a weekly show. Last year I'd done a what's going on at the Fringe and got people to talk to us, and we would go through, if we were there, what would we be seeing, and tried to kind of highlight digital again, but there was no space to have the digital because you either saw it on your own or getting people into a Zoom call to watch a screened thing is a bit weird. But having the Cyberia space commissioned, the conversation initially with you, and I think how you were trying to get Peter to understand what was going on is, well, what is the Cyberia Experience? Is it a show that we put on every day, or is it a venue that we list with the venues, but then the venue would get confused because it's not a physical venue? And I think this compromise of it being an everyday experience that then had content programmed into it was really useful for me to be able to work out how that is framed and how it can be used by other artists. Yeah, and then looking through the live work that people had submitted and separating that out from the on-demand playlist stuff and going through and saying, well, they're going to be live at 8 o'clock. I mean, Michael especially being live from 4 till 6:30 or 7 till 9:30, they became slots that there's live things happening. So those slots must go to the people who are real. And then Kevin as well, Kevin Groves of the Inky Sci-Fi and Horror Show, had 2 shows in at the beginning, missed in the week, and I hadn't realised that then he came up live with you as well, wasn't it? So you were able to meet with him? You met up with Kevin?
Yeah, I did meet up with him. And also Jem, who was involved in 2021, she was involved with the programming that year. And a little bit in 2022, but she wasn't really this year. Maybe next year, because, you know, there's always possibility for new endeavours, really.
But was a guest on the show, so you've still done a live show every day except Sundays.
Yes.
With one or two guests. And we estimate about 24 guests you interviewed across.
I think at least 24, but I mean, I did Kevin more than once and you 2 or 3 times. So I'm like,
and I didn't come on the show as many times as I think we thought I might have to. I think you did
I mean, there was
such a good job at getting those scheduled. That's a job and a half. I mean, I had 6 shows and you are number 6. This show is number 6. You know, I kind of neglected that a bit. But yeah, so Kevin was on your show, Jem was on the show. Who else? How did you get your guests and who were they?
Well, I put out a call for guests and then I said, well, for most of them, I've got a spreadsheet. Just apply, and I'll get back to you, and then I'll stack them all up. So that, and a few other people were extras from other places, but then not everybody got back to me, and I just assumed that they were all set up. And then I went, hang on a minute. Fortunately, about the same time as I was running out of guests, I went to Edinburgh and I ran into almost all the people. It's like the only people I met were the people that I was supposed to be interviewing anyway. I was like, you you're on Wednesday. Is that all right? Yes, good. There was at least 5 people that I could not get in touch with that if I hadn't seen them, it's like Ben McPherson. I was walking back. I was like, you. Sort it out. I'll interview you. It has to be a different time because his show was at 10:40 and this show was 11. So I had to interview him in advance for that. And then that meant a few other people, you know, that weren't available towards the end. It was much easier to just last 3 days. It's like I'm just going to get them out of the way and stick them up. It was the internet. It's like it very much relies on having a stable internet connection, and that's what started to go a bit wrong in the last bit because it's like I was having to walk all the way across town with like a backpack full of all my equipment and then carry it around all day.
Yeah.
I was like, I can't cope with this anymore.
Yeah. There's definitely there's a world of PBH that needs to be envisaged and envisioned and then streamlined for 2024.
Yeah.
But I think we're going to do a lot of envisaging before Christmas. I know I've got a lot to share with you. I spent, because I didn't go up to the Fringe at all, I was at the mercy of the Facebook groups and looking at Twitter. I didn't look at the hashtags a lot. I wanted to see what was in my feed because I was interested to see where people who I knew were up there, trying to work out who in your network is where. There's a lot of people asking for reviews, a lot of people asking for recommendations of where they can go and get props and their sets breaking and technology, and people coming over from the States and asking where they can buy certain reusable props, and that was an insight for me of the Fringe as a stage manager of, all this stuff that's going on. There's a few great Facebook groups, a lot of people saying how great it was for them and their 5-star reviews, but also being able to see, bums on seats, people being disheartened by not having anybody to play to. I mean, that whole balance it's a massive, it's a behemoth that carry, 3 weeks it happens, and there are fringes elsewhere. Be interesting to see, other fringes, but your guests were really good insights. People who had been there quite a lot of times. There was a few that would just talk specifically about their show, and and I think anyone who's thinking of going to the Fringe and hasn't, it's a great place to start to see who's been up there and what they might be wanting to do. Yeah.
It was also, it was like fate sometimes. The people that I couldn't get into contact with, when they finally did appear, there was like thematically, it was like I'd set this up so that these people with thematically similar shows, or things that could complement each other's shows, seemed to be on the same. It's like, well, that was good that you've got things in common about maybe your personal life, but completely different shows, maybe, or something. It's like, this is about this, and this one, it's like, wow. It just sort of worked somehow, I think. In a lot of cases, it was just like, well, that is fortunate that these people can talk about these things.
And having some space in the digital program to showcase the on-demand items. So Tenderfoot Theatre had submitted a short 15-minute piece, Slick, being able to screen that, and they came, or one of the performers came and saw that, and having it screened for them, they really appreciated that it had been selected to be shown. I was really pleased to be able to screen Peter Buckley Hill's work, and I was just going to do one of them, and then I realized that there was enough space within the schedule to be able to, not only, we started with How Does It Smell? And then there was Ephemeroids, and both of those just played really well. And it was the way that they had been filmed, they do actually translate really well to being screened on a full wall inside a virtual space. And it did at times, having the reaction from the audience on the film, did kind of feel like you were almost there. It was and I think with PBH being the initials and people not always realizing that PBH is a real person, to be able to screen his stuff, I think was really important. It'd be good to do something live. That's what next year for me, I would like to be able to do some live streaming into that space.
Oh yeah. And that is also, if we're up there and we can sort of arrange it on the fly and see who's there, then that's, if we've got the equipment, that's more doable. Because I think the trouble was, people were like, oh, what's that? If you're there and you can explain it to them or just show them, then people are more likely to go, yeah, that sounds good.
If we're looking, it's like you had your guests for your show, I'll be having a schedule of people who want to stream their show that episode. So people hopefully will say, oh, well, come to me next, and come, where are they going to be? Which venues are feasible to stream from? The possibility of having a streaming studio that people can maybe come to us to be really nice to extend the immersive technology showcase for the Fringe, because a few people had been flagged to me that had wanted to do VR enabled work but hadn't done a tech check, therefore when they arrived just didn't work. And I think finding out some of the infrastructure of the PBH venues and seeing where we can push the technology with those.
Well, that's the thing, because I was up there, I got to see more of the venues, some of the ones that I hadn't actually seen physically. I go, oh, hang on. I mean, CC Bloom's, I didn't realize it's got a screen, and I saw somebody who I interviewed doing the thing about the how to avoid an AI apocalypse, and he was just screening it onto the like big TV screen. So it's sort of that whole venue turned around just for that, and then turned back around to this because it's got a stage as well. It's like, I didn't realize that was the case, and Luke, who's running it, was like, oh, I didn't know that either. It's like, because sometimes venues have got equipment and stuff that they don't necessarily tell you about.
Well, we're doing a PBH debrief now. I think there's definitely some conversation to be had about having a PBH recce trip, and and how when we can make that happen. Definitely, yeah.
But I know when I've gone up there with screening things in the past, I've had to buy, like, I bought a big canvas from the Works one year, and I borrowed a projector. No, I bought a projector that year, and then the year before somebody had brought a screen and I'd borrowed a projector, and it was not perfect, but other people chip in and use it, and so we share equipment and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So if there isn't the equipment, you can pull it together, but you have to talk to other people that need it, really.
Yeah, the AV part of it. Yeah. So is there, when I've spoken to people who've gone to Edinburgh, the more times they go, the more they realise the different types of reason you go to Edinburgh. So what reasons do you think there are for different people to go to Edinburgh, and which of those points have you achieved this year, or which did you not, and what would you like to have got out of this year that you didn't?
Right. Well, first of all, there's vanity, which only really works if you've got loads of money. So I would recommend not doing that unless you've got loads of money. A lot of people think that they're going to win awards, which is unlikely. It's possible. People win awards. You never know. But you have to really usually have the PR behind you. So that's also vanity. So they're neither of those reasons. It's, self-expression, obviously, that's a good one, but also you tend to have the money behind you. It's like, why are you going up there? Now, I did it on a massively reduced budget from the kindness of friends and strangers, and people being kind, and the thing is, I did spend a lot of more money in the last few days than I did for the whole time, but it's very difficult to do it on a budget. I mean, I know one of the people that I interviewed said, oh, well, doing PBH, because you get a free venue with PBH, and so you have to think about flyers.
I mean, that's massive. That is massive. But all the venue holders,
you
don't have to pay for your venue.
You don't have to pay for a venue. Obviously, you have to find accommodation. That is a biggie. That is a toughie, because that is so expensive. I was very lucky to stay with friends.
What was the average this year? Do you know how much would it have cost you for a week or for 3 weeks? And even then, if you're doing a show in the first week, you can't just turn up on the first week of the 3 days. So you've actually got, although it starts on the Saturday, you're really going the Wednesday before to the Wednesday after, aren't you? Really?
Well, yeah. I mean, the setup day for us is on the day before the official Fringe day. A lot of people start at the beginning of August or the end of July now, but officially it usually starts the first full weekend. So next year is the second. It starts to the 26th. So it carries on to what is a bank holiday Monday in England, but is not in Scotland.
Right.
So that's always, you sort of wedge up to the last day is going to be whatever is a bank holiday in England, and the 3 weeks before that. So a lot of people do. I have a few times come from the beginning of July till September, if there is that available, like accommodation. The student accommodation used to be the good thing, because if you've got a lot of people, you can club together and get it, but that has shot up in price. So I think in like 2011 or 12, I was paying like £600 for the whole month. Now it's, looking at double or triple that if you're lucky. But people that were spending £700 or £800 on a flat were finding that it's about 3,000 or 4,000 this year. So it wasn't cheap. And obviously hostels go up. Like if you got a £12 hostel outside the Fringe, it's between 30 and 100 for the same, sharing with 11 people sort of thing.
Wow.
I was looking at, maybe I'll do a hotel room for a night. I thought, a nice hotel room. I know in 2015 I had a hotel room for £100. I was thinking, and that was a bargain then. But it was like the same hotel rooms are about 400 quid now. So you're not looking at a cheap couple of weeks really. So you have to really be committed to it.
The behind the scenes part of the Fringe generally. So say you've got the audience, the front of house in the venues. What kind of happens behind the scenes at Edinburgh? There's the Fringe Central. How do people kind of navigate the backstage area? What's the backstage area of the Edinburgh Fringe?
A lot of the bigger venues have got green rooms, and I found out that the Banshee Labyrinth, where I did a couple of shows, had officially a green room, which was also a storage room, but apparently that ended up in a bit of a mess, and the people weren't happy with it. So you got to keep looking after it, really. So a lot of the bigger venues have got places. A lot of the big venues have got special members bars. So like all the swishy famous people hang out. I spent the first few years getting into the memberships to these bars. And
it's like the Gilded Balloons still
Gilded
that
Balloons
kind
got
of...
one.
Yeah.
I mean, it varies. They had the Loft Bar and the Library Bar at various different years. It's usually the Loft Bar now, but the Library Bar for a couple of years, I think, was the official one. And then there's the one in the Pleasance, which is usually in the Pleasance Dome rather than the Pleasance Courtyard. I don't think there's... And then there's Abattoir, which is the Underbelly one.
Mm-hmm.
So there's all different, and there's an Assembly one as well. The Assembly Bar I got membership to a couple of years. But I've just lost the will to bother trying, because it's like you have to go, I'm an official arts person or a business person. Can I have one? And they're like, yes.
No one likes, do you know who I am? Yeah.
Do you know who I am? It's like,
I don't
very
even
special.
care. I don't care who I am anymore. Just let me in.
I don't care who I am anymore. No, it's like I feel like I'm probably more important than I used to be, but I feel less important. So I don't know. I haven't got the chutzpah to pull it off anymore.
So you've got Fringe Central passes, and is there sort of a press layer, or
you can get a press pass? I had an arts industry pass for the last few years because I am arts industry. In fact, I got an arts industry pass from the moment I went up there. I made sure that I was arts industry, because you also, if you're a performer, you pay to go in the book, and then for that you also get access to Fringe Central. This year they split Fringe Central into two, so the arts industry was in one, and it was desolate. There was nobody there because they're all hanging out at the bars. They don't need to. And all the artists were in the Quakers Meeting House, which was a nicer place. But I thought, well, I haven't paid to go in the book. I don't feel comfortable. I was told that I could have gone there, but I know that somebody that hadn't gone in the big book tried to get in there because they're an artist, and they were turned away and felt very sad.
So paying for the big book. So the PBH Wee Blue book is, you take part in the PBH Fringe and you get an entry in the PBH.
You get an entry, and I mean, we don't charge for you going in there, although we say there's a voluntary donation, so we suggest £3 per performance. So it's like if you do 3 performances, then it's like give us £9.
There's a donation suggestion, but
it's a suggestion. You don't have to. We don't.
Anybody performing,
but
can't pay PR and get a bigger advert in the Wee Blue book.
No.
So
they can pay to go in the
really
main,
like that.
But we don't let any of the people that are performing their shows have a bigger. They don't pay to have a bigger one. So the adverts, we have got like performance adverts, but they're like things for festivals outside the Fringe, or if you've got a book to sell, then if you want to do that, there's a couple of books for sale through it. And there are shows, if you've got a show that you want to put an advert in, but it's not part of the Fringe, the Edinburgh Fringe, then I suppose that's... But you, as a Fringe artist, as a PBH artist, then we don't have special big splashy pages that are to make people like, oh, these people are more special.
The big book has just the little entries in the big book has a fee attached to it, so you have
a massive fee. I mean, you have to pay 400 quid to have the normal one. If you want an extra advert, then you're paying a couple of thousand, whatever. depending on it. So you can pay extra, but you don't get anything extra for doing that, except your big face in the book.
Yeah.
But technically, the Fringe Society provides access to artist services and the arts industry and the press don't pay a fee to have access to the art services, but the performers do. So it's a little bit unbalanced when you think about that. But
that's the great thing.
The arts industry didn't get a very special swishy room this time, so maybe it's fair. It's just a desolate hallway.
I know, having done 3 weeks from here at my desk focusing on it, it was really useful and really I did feel part of something that was taking place a long way away. It was great to work with you, but things do come to an end, and I think that's the important thing of what happens next. So I know when we were how do you bring a debriefing to an end, and I think one of the things that we said we were going to do is all the way through this we've been using this StreamYard studio, and we've had the logo in the corner, and I think it comes to a point, and I think we'll have that now where we thank we thank the PBH 2023. We salute you. But I think the 2023 PBH Fringe comes to a close, so we will say goodbye to the logo.
It's over.
Because 2024, Elise, how does the roller coaster start again? So what happens now?
Well, it's already starting, really. We've got to still talk about, what we can start looking at venues, start talking to venues and people that are in Edinburgh. And we already have to deal with chairs, because we had many chairs that we did have storage for years, but that is not available anymore. So they had to find storage for chairs. I'm not sure they were all dealt with. So we're going to have to sort out to see whether that's sorted.
So so in terms of, we also that concept of sponsorship, partners and donations, or friends, and PBH is always looking for donations and supporters that will have resources that they can and lend, and that can be credited in ways, but there's no billing partnership with PBH.
We don't do sponsorship.
It's PBH.
No, if somebody donated and it was an ethical company, then we'd of course mention them and put them. Maybe we could have a list of donors in the Wee Blue Book. That would be not be on.
But I think especially the sponsorship.
No,
how it is. So if you've got space that you'd like to support PBH with, do get in touch. So what if money was no object with PBH? What would you have? What would you like the PBH to be if money was no object?
Well, if we had loads of money, then we could provide some cheap or subsidized or even free accommodation for artists, and maybe transport links and stuff like that. Certainly, we could do loads of things. The aim is to get so the artist doesn't have to pay for the venue. It might be more complicated with accommodation, because you can't really get free accommodation, but it'd be nice if we could offer some
more subsidies, isn't it? Because I think free is a little bit dangerous. It's like when you do events and they are free, people end up not turning up, or they don't take it as seriously, or they don't commit in a way where they haven't got some kind of financial component holding them accountable. But so reducing that cost of being able to subsidize that.
Exactly. That would be nice. We've talked about that in the past, but it's never really. But now that we're a registered charity, that's more feasible. It's more of a sort of, because you can get grants for that sort of thing. So possibly we could do that in the future. It's difficult to know, really.
Yeah.
But obviously, because we've got the chairs, we might have had to sell some of the chairs. we didn't have as many venues this, but if we've got pop-ups or there's a venue that doesn't normally do these events, then we need the extra chairs.
I hadn't considered the whole chairs thing. I saw a few posts of people saying we've got chairs that we need to get rid of, and or story that finding some companies that would donate chairs during the Fringe would for PBH.
Well, I mean, we've got chairs. We did have chairs, but we might have had to offload a load of them
because we needed somewhere to put them.
Yeah, exactly.
Challenge accepted. That's it. Challenge a stage manager to find a resource. It's like challenge accepted. Yeah. As we close, how did Peter Buckley Hill find this year? Because I know it's become a charity. There was also the head rearing of COVID that seemed to haunt some people. The people thought that might be something that didn't happen anymore. But yeah, how has Peter found the conclusion of this? What's this year been like for him?
Well, I don't know. I mean, he wasn't going to go back, and he did, and it was like optimistic last minute thing, and then illness and stuff. So I mean, I managed to interview him on the last day, so at least something. I mean, he did a few shows early on when he came up, and he did some shows at the end, so at least something came of it. I'm going to be seeing him on Sunday anyway. We're going to have a sort of like a debrief like this, and probably have some juice and coffee and stuff, and talk about how it's gone and how it may go in the future. Because I am now a director of the charity. That's saying congratulations. You're probably liable if everything goes wrong. I'm like, oh no.
Well,
that doesn't happen then.
Well, the debrief with Peter is to come, and I have to say, I am so in awe of what Peter has managed to establish from, sort of midnight 94, 95 when this all started, was it? And it's just
96, I think, yeah.
96, and it's just grown, and the fact that it's just still here. And when I've told people what the ethos of Free Fringe is, who is it for free, and I've told them, they have been in awe. So I have to, hats off to Peter for him to do that. So I think we'll close the stream here, which will leave me to be able to share with you my crazy plan for next year, which I don't know whether all of it will happen, none of it will happen, but I've certainly been able to make notes throughout this, and I've put together what my perfect PBH Free Fringe will be. So fingers crossed, if you can't be there next year, you will be able to be here with us, and whatever this manifests. And with that, I will hit the end broadcast button. Thanks so much, Elise, for dragging me on board and just being so consistent year after year of doing this, and me wanting to be part of it. And I finally have. So we will continue the conversation. Hitting the button now.